Quite literally, it can be a mess where your cleaning and your organizing can be undone in moments by your family. And my family is creative, inventing new ways to make a mess. And during certain seasons, your mess may be highlighted. We are working from home, schooling at home, eating at home, worshiping at home, and simply living full-time at home. You can't get away from the mess. So, here in the South, we pull up our waders and put on our blinders. We have learned to have a place for everything, but sometimes getting everything back into that place may take work. We have checkpoints to clean this house top to bottom. Meals, free time, those are great moments to stop and make sure the house is picked up. And every Friday, we deep clean.
What you doing, Thea?
Here it comes.
We clean up the mess. It's like everything's dumped up and stuff, and people frown. I don't want you to do that. Again, they want to clean up and vacuum the mess that's in here, and they have to clean up the whole mess.
So Proverbs 14:4, it says, "Where no oxen are, the manger is clean, but much revenue comes by the strength of the ox." You know, we're talking about messiness, and of course having a family of 10 children, it doesn't take but a minute for things to get messy real quickly. And all it takes is each child to leave a mess in different spots of the house. But you know, I'm naturally a neat freak, and I like to keep things clean and orderly because it helps my brain think better. So God's almost had a sense of humor in giving me a family of 10 children to where things are not in my control for being clean or messy. But you know what he tells us is that there is much fruit and much production when there's mess. In other words, if you have a clean stable, that means you have no oxen who are working the field, and there is no fruit coming out of that. But there is much fruit, even when we can't see it, even when we're in the middle of the mess, there is much fruit coming out of this. There's fruit that's going to come out of our children in years to come. It's already coming out of them, and their older ones, we can see how God is working in their lives. And also, there's just, you know, the scriptures say revenue, or other versions that say different things, but you know, there is a blessing with the children, and God blesses the mess. He blesses what seems like chaos in our lives, but it's the mess. And in that mess, as we seek Him and as we press forward, we see fruit born out of that. So I have learned, as my wife has told me, to put on high boots and walk through the mess, and I've learned to just enjoy and revel, not a pun, no pun intended there, but revel in the mess, because I know God is in it, and I know many beautiful things are coming out of the messiness of our lives because we keep turning to Him in the mess.
This is a poem we made for this episode. Actually, it starts with kind of like a joke kind of question. How many children does it take to clean up a mess? If one, then Gabriella. Otherwise, one to cry, one to blame, one to step in it, one to complain, one to run for the paper towels, one to get mom for all the tattles, two to argue the quickest and not stop to the last fix, one to oversee, that would be me. Sophia the last uncleans it fast. The end.
You must go. You must go.
Does he have the equipment?
All right, sit right beside Garrett. Can you get a little bit closer to Garrett?
He's stinky.
He's not stinky.
He on me.
Slide over, sit next to Garrett.
He is stinky. No, I'm not.
Sophia, slide over.
Mrs. We can get up after this out and can paste and breaking the phone and have messes. And then what we do, we make a mess so we can clean it a bunch of times. Is a mess that's on the floor here? Like worked up couches and ruined stuff. And worked up and that looks all ugly and crooked. And the pirates are ugly. Yeah, like that and stuff.
What do you two do to help keep the house clean?
We clean up. And we want federal. What?
Meal times can be especially messy.
I was thinking the same thing. Man, I'm glad you didn't capture that.
What's wrong?
The way I see it, there's leftover tortilla.
Oh, don't let him have tortillas.
I'm not gonna eat cheese.
You know when you
just
just
like
eat the tortillas.
it's like one tortilla in here,
No, there's two.
2 tortillas, and I'm just
Maybe
saying
even
cook them
3.
plain.
This is
That's
food.
it.
It ruins the tortillas.
No, I did not. You're just jealous.
That's a big culprit. Culprit.
Don't use that, Andrew.
Culprit. Here. The Seagers made this mess of tuna and cornbread. We're getting some napkins.
For what?
For cleaning out the floor. Well, that's a lot of napkins, Garrett.
Andrew and Hava, I have a question for you.
What is it?
Do you consider yourselves a messy or a neat freak?
Neat freak. Neat freak.
Very good. What kind of messes do you make?
Like leaving toys out, jogging out the room. Well, I sometimes leave my desk a little messy. Other than that, I'm a neat freak. Yeah. Me too.
What responsibilities do you have around the house to keep it clean and nice?
That foyer,
I had to
that
do the
small
dining
foyer,
room, the
upper, lower
dishwasher.
staircase, and my part in the girls' room. And the dining room.
My part in the make up my bed, got a
Great. I don't know. I forgot.
Elisiana and Isabella, would you consider yourself to be a messy or a neat freak?
You first. Okay. I consider myself kind of like an in-between freak because sometimes I really don't care how messy it looks, and sometimes I feel like I can't even eat breakfast knowing that my bed has a few wrinkles in it.
It'd be the same for her, but generally, especially when guests are coming over, I'm a neat freak. I'm like, it has to be perfect, or when I'm trying to get it done so I can ask the parents for something, I'm a neat freak.
What was the question again?
What are
What was the question again?
All right, Brennan and Gabriella, question pour vous.
See,
Would you consider yourselves to be a messy or a neat freak?
Neat.
neat but not neat freak.
How do we try to maintain our home and our property?
We have our chores, jurisdictions, weekend chores. Dad and everybody will head out on the weekend during the spring and fall to do landscaping, etc. Did I miss anything?
No.
No. That basically covers it.
So your first question is, do you consider yourself a neat freak or a messy?
Is there an in between? Well, I consider myself an in between. I would consider myself in between, but leaning a bit more on the messy side of things.
Wait, what?
I'm letting it run. Go ahead.
And your relationships with one another have the same mindset as Jesus Christ. Philippians 2:5.
Relationships can also be messy, especially when your entire family is home all the time. It's the perfect moment to learn to put others first. We call it others' esteem, to consider others as more worthy of honor than yourself. Philippians 2:3 in the Passion Translation puts it this way: don't allow self-promotion to hide in your hearts, but in authentic humility, put others first and view others as more important than yourselves. We must learn a deeper way to love. 1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins and messes. Garrett, what is love?
I love you with my heart. Jesus loves us. We love each other. We love God. And we clean up the messes other people make for them all by ourselves and clean the whole room.
Is it harder to keep the house clean or to be kind to others when you're upset?
It's hard to be kind to each other's, the others when you're upset.
Harder to clean up the house.
Why?
Well, because I can be nice, and it's not that hard to be nice whenever I'm upset. And the house, it's brutal. Brutal, she says. All right. Our homemade vocabulary word for this episode is cleanophobic, which means fear of cleaning. I am anti-cleanophobic, so, I'm not afraid of cleaning. But some of my siblings don't really like cleaning, so I would call them cleanophobics.
Would you consider it to be easier to maintain the house and the property, or easier to maintain relationships?
You answer first.
Easier to maintain the house and the property.
I would say relationships.
Why?
Because you can mend those, but in the house, if you break something, you can't exactly mend it all the time, and you have to be working all day on it. And for relationships, you only have to work on them when you're around that person most of the time.
I consider it easier to do the house and around because generally it's kind of already clean. Sure, some things get break, but that doesn't happen as often now.
Garrett, what is forgiveness?
Forgiving people when they disobey me and say sorry.
Would you consider it more difficult to maintain the property or to maintain relationships?
I think it would be more difficult to maintain relationships
Why?
because they're convoluted and complicated with a lot of different factors going in.
What you doing, Andrew? Hiding. From who? Mommy. Well, if you're walking out, that doesn't mean you're hiding.
Did she call everybody to the laundry room?
Yes, and Mom's right there. Hide.
So this is the final week of classes. Next week, I think it's the week of the 24th or 27th. I'm really kind of lost since we're all in quarantine. But it's finals next week, and then it would have been graduation next Friday as far as the ceremony, but I'm still graduating. I get to pick up my cap and gown and diploma sometime in May, most likely early May, and hopefully get to walk at a later date this year. As far as a job after, as far as a job, one second. As far as a job after graduation, that is still in the works, and I will have more details soon, hopefully. Wanna give me a kiss? Want your still back? Okay.
Andrew, what is love?
Love is when you love somebody and like you do stuff for them, kindly.
Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres.
So now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love.
It is not uncommon for major storms to pass through here, bringing high winds, heavy rain, and sometimes even tornadoes. This week, we had a triple storm pass through our area. We have a basement laundry room that doubles as our storm room.
Rotation continues here across Vegasville, Cedar Rock, along Highway 135. Let's put a track over this.
This baby squirrel was named Goliath. He was knocked down out of his nest by a mighty storm, and David raised him. Circumstances can also be messy, sometimes by our own choice, sometimes by others. We end up wading through quite a mess. The journey through these valleys can be brief, but often they are extended periods of time where we learn to completely lay down our will. in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for God is with me. His rod and staff, they comfort me. We've journeyed through many messy circumstances, and I can confidently say, you can trust God. You can trust God. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "But he answered me, my grace is always more than enough for you, and my power finds its full expression through your weakness. So I will celebrate my weaknesses, for when I'm weak, I sense more deeply the mighty power of Christ living in me." Okay, for our first time ever playing that together, that wasn't shabby.
Did you hear the guitars at all?
I
I didn't. I was
feel
trying to
tense.
get the beat based off the you.
You actually did a really good job.
I was having a hard
Exercise
time.
your jaw.
Did you hear the guitars at all?
know.
Dude, talk to me before you start doing it.
I actually heard the beat more.
Well, everybody,
It's just easier for me.
We've already prayed for bedtime, so give hugs and sugars. So Thea needs to go on up and potty. Sandra and Garrett need to go on up.
I don't get money.
I tried doing something like that, but I've been doing it. This is different.
Psalms 119, verse 31. Lord, don't allow me to make a mess of my life, for I cling to your commands and follow them as closely as I can.
Garrett, have you ever had to ask for forgiveness?
I had to ask for God to forgive my sins. And I forgive them.
You mean they forgave you?
And I forgive them as well. And I say sorry for disobeying the laws. So that's how I got to sin.
Garrett, have you ever had to ask one of your brothers or sisters to forgive you for something that you did?
Yeah, it's my sins, what I did. Like cotton butt, that's another sin. And since I made a bunch of sins, I deserve the 400 pound in the wet and could get nearly caught. But then Jesus paid for it a bunch. Get it?
Cut it off.
He erased our sins.
Not only can our circumstances sometimes be messy, but this can also affect our hearts. There is such fear, anxiety, and hurt in our world. You could be tempted to despair, but hang on. Jesus said, "In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, for I have overcome the world." Philippians 4:8 in the Passion Translation says, "So keep your thoughts continually fixed on all that is authentic and real, honorable and admirable. beautiful and respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind. And fasten your thoughts on every glorious work of God, praising Him always. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus.